Impressions COVID online art exhibition provides a platform for people to share their personal experiences during the pandemic. We have collected more than 120 artworks of various mediums, including sketches, painting, photography, animation, design, documentary, and music from 62 artists representing 17 countries. We are glad to interview 4 artists about the inspiration of their artworks and some ideas about the exhibition.
This artwork it's about like my personal experiences and just like the emotion of being separated from others. And I don't know, I hear a lot of people talking about like how if you're an introvert, like quarantine is so easy and you're used to being by yourself. But I'm a very introverted person, and I just wanted to share like how like I really do miss my friends, and yeah, like it's very lonely anyways.
I was in New York City and I need to like leave my dorm, and I also like needed to say goodbye to a lot of friends, and we didn't know like when we would meet each other, like, and we didn't meet like until now perhaps. And also like it's just this complex feelings when you walk into the airport when you're alone and with your suitcase. And that's why I sort of have the inspiration for the piece. It's like just a piece about being in the airport and just that kind of feeling when you're like a traveler, like, or like especially for those international students, I guess, would have the like same kind of resonance.
I made all of those 3 pieces in a way during 3 different periods during quarantine. So they were not works that were actually made all at once. There were 3 videos that I made throughout, from the first one at the start of quarantine, the second one sort of during fall quarter, and then the third one near the end of winter break. And they were sort of exploring 3 different places at where I was at really, and how I was reacting to being in quarantine and having to renegotiate my well-being and my identity. So the first video was an exploration of my psyche at the time, you can say. The second video, exploration of the psyche during fall quarter, and then the last video, finally a culmination of all of the ideas that both videos have, and directing that towards a direction that's more resilient and a bit more honest, I think.
But when the protests started kicking off, I was definitely drawn to, well, I kind of honed in on trying to capture the interface between protesting and the pandemic, social problems and inequalities that the pandemic kind of highlighted. Obviously, you know, the virus itself is invisible to the camera. You can't photograph COVID-19, but you can photograph, you know, the effects that it has. So yeah, definitely that was kind of my focus, was trying to capture this intersection of, you know, pandemic and protest. And, you know, there were the Black Lives Matter protests, which you mentioned before, and the Extinction Rebellion protests, and also these anti-lockdown protests. And, you know, all of them responded to the pandemic in their own way. Obviously you had, like, you know, the face masks and sometimes social distancing at these protests, usually not, but then also you had the discourse surrounding the pandemic kind of mobilized and leveraged by the protesters. Like, you know, at the Black Lives Matter protests, you had, you know, these face masks with racism as a virus on them, you know, racism as a pandemic.
And I was working all in my room. So as you can see behind me, this is like a dollhouse, which I used to put my phone inside and take pictures. So yeah, I had to set up lights and stuff on a chair and figure out how to do that in my room.
I use a lot of different sound effects to like describe my thoughts, and I asked my friends to write the lyrics, which is really like full of different imageries.
It was a really stringent process in terms of filming. I had to be very specific as to what shots I wanted because it was, frankly, the videos were all really reliant on editing because I don't have a cinematographer. So I'm basically being my own cinematographer, directing another person with no cinematography experience to film me, which was a very difficult challenge to have to really create a cinematographer from scratch, basically.
These people, many of those protesters are quite aware of how they are portrayed in the media, and so they see anyone with a camera. I mean, I'm not a press photographer, but they assume that you are a press photographer if you're holding a reasonably sized camera. And so I did have some kind of uncomfortable confrontations.
I think it's great, even though if we can't like meet each other and talk in person, I think sharing artwork is a great way to share who we are and how we feel, and know that other people may have things in common.
I'm participating in this BPMI event because I'm really interested in the idea all the different artists are all on the same platform and share their artworks and share their thoughts on under the context of the pandemic.
I just love that you guys provided this space where we can just show the work that we currently have, because I think a lot of our work these days, whether we like it or not, is very much a response to what's happening.
Social impacts yet to be seen. I certainly hope there is, not only for its kind of value as kind of a historical record, but also as kind of a means of dialogue with, the present moment, later moments,